Hey there, scary story fanatics! Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. I hope you're prepared for the long haul. For tonight, we're camping out. So, grab your tent and toss the compass. There's no need to wonder where you are. It's all about surviving familiar territory.
In late spring of 2011, a proposed reality television program about wilderness survival was accepted, and steps for the pilot broadcast were quickly put into motion. After close scrutiny of members chosen from the selection process, only one particular survivalist was elected to enter an undisclosed wilderness and survive for 2 weeks, bringing nothing more than his clothes and a pocket knife. The individual was also given a briefcase full of various digital recording equipment with which he was to document his entire experience. Included with the equipment was also a brown, leather-bound journal in which he was to document his thoughts on the events of each day for the purposes of effective narration later in production. According to official records, upon extraction after the initial 2-week period, deep in the mountainous forests of the Pacific Northwest, no trace of the survival expert or his digital equipment was ever found, resulting in the cancellation of the program before it had even aired. The journal, however, was recovered and recently leaked to the public. Day 1.
Today went pretty typical as far as wilderness survival goes. Everything started out as expected. I was flown to an undisclosed location by a production crew in helicopter where I was told without warning that we had reached our destination. The equipment was lowered first, by tether line, into a small clearing of an expansive northwestern forest below the chopper. Once the package was safely upon the ground, I was informed that it was my turn. The crew member, Richard, helped me by attaching me safely to the line and assured me that they would return to this location in exactly 2 weeks. Without fear, I repelled from the chopper and landed safely beside the large, silver briefcase. After I detached myself from the cable, I watched the helicopter reel it back inside above me, and the chopper itself take back off over the tree line from which we had come from. A few moments later, the helicopter was gone, and the silence of isolation quickly was upon me. Some people might panic, but I honestly love being out in the wild. It can be dangerous, but if precautions are made, a person can not only survive out here, they can thrive, which is exactly what I plan on doing. I immediately broke open the suitcase and removed a small digital camera from inside. After closing the case, I recorded myself, explaining how I had gotten here and what my plans were. After the chopper had left, the forest surrounding me became very quiet. The sounds of chirping birds and distant running water were all I could hear. It was the source of the sounds of water that I had decided to locate first. Camera in hand, I walked due west towards the sounds of what I would soon discover to be an isolated running creek. I knew I had no container for water at the time. I couldn't store any at the moment. I was, however, able to locate some edible berries and gain some cordage from the local flora. Following the creek downstream, the ground I was walking upon became the bottom of a narrow valley in which the stream had carved through the rock, towering upward on both sides at about a slight 30-degree angle. I found two very useful things here. One, the most notable, was a simple, empty plastic water bottle. That's one good thing about humans. Trash can be found anywhere. In a situation like this, trash can be more than useful. This item would prove to be a staple of being out here. If performed carefully and with a little finesse, one can successfully boil water within a plastic container. Taking in the area surrounding me, I spotted the second useful thing this location had to offer: shelter. Only about 10 feet up the eastern slope was a small cave. It only went into the rock about 4 feet, but the space provided a roof to shelter me from the elements, a flat surface surrounding it, and a high enough vantage point where I could keep an eye out for apex predators, such as mountain lions and bears. I filmed myself setting up camp, hand fishing a few small fish from the stream, and gathering various plants that I would use to brew a tea. Now I'm underneath the moonlight with a relatively full belly, something warm to sip on, and a roof over my head. Life doesn't get any better.
Day 2.
Today wasn't too much more eventful than yesterday. I thought I had gathered enough pine boughs yesterday to combat the hard surface of stone on which I sleep, but I awoke frequently last night due to being moderately uncomfortable from the chill of stone. Today I fixed this problem, and I should get a much better night's rest. I was able to use the bottle 2 more times today without melting it, and it's still intact. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to procure any fish today, but there was still plenty of edible plants to forage from, so I'm able to stave off hunger pains for the time being. Earlier this morning, I awoke and was able to locate some game trails used by small game, most likely used by rabbits and squirrels. With a little bit of pre-educated ingenuity, I threw together a total of 6 fall traps in various areas, using large rocks and small twigs. If I don't catch anything through the night or tomorrow morning, I'll have to resort to finding some insects or grub worms to eat to replenish some calories. Also, something odd did happen today. While I was out setting the 3rd trap, I saw something really weird. At first, all I could make out was a large object moving through the forest at a distance. I didn't see it right away, as it took a few moments to move. Then it would stop again, blending with its surroundings. It was all brown and presumably pretty large. I don't have anything on me that could potentially kill a deer or anything like that, and I instantly recognized the threat of a possible predator. So, I just hunkered down where I was for a few moments, seeing if I could get a glimpse of whatever it was the next time it decided to move. I was crouched down really close to the forest floor, trying not to make a movement, when finally the object moved again, right where I had seen it last. Still, what it was still unknown, so I reached my head around the other side of the tree, and what I saw was equally astonishing as it was unsettling. A good 40 to 50 yards away, in the density of large conifers and hemlocks, was a dark brown male grizzly bear looking right at me. The astonishing thing, however, is what I caught sight of right next to him. A full-grown wolf stood beside the bear at about a distance of only 10 yards, staring right at me as well, paying no apparent mind to the large bear beside it. Most people would likely panic, but I knew what to do. I stood to my feet to display my size, showing the animals that I was not injured or as small as they may have perceived me at first. I was right about to start backing away very slowly when the two unlikely partners turned to face away from me and sauntered slowly into the forest beyond, until gone from sight completely. I have never seen, nor do I think I ever will see again, a similar odd instance. Wolves are predators, but will not attack a perfectly healthy grizzly bear, especially alone. A wolf or similar predator will avoid a larger one, especially a bear. Neither animal seemed to have anything wrong with it, so I'm still unsure what to make of it. I am happy to report that I haven't seen either of my forest friends since. I set the traps a good distance from camp, so even if they're still in the area, I'm far enough away to call this place home, as good as any. The woods here are so serene at night, downright peaceful. Well, I'm feeling a little sleepy, so I think I'm going to try and get some sleep.
Day 3.
Alright, so I woke up this morning and everything's gone. Well, the camera equipment anyway. I mean the suitcase, everything. At first I thought I got raided by poachers or something in the night, while I slept. But the peculiar thing is, not one human footprint or boot print can be found in the very loose soil that make up the top layer of dirt here at camp. However, the camp is littered with animal tracks, as if the return of wolves and bears, fox prints, at least one minx. I mean all kinds of animals. They must have been making a racket, so it's unlikely that I would have slept through such an event, and I don't see forest animals plundering camera equipment. What the hell's going on here? I'm going to go check my traps and take a look around to see if I can find any of my lost things. There's something in the woods. I'm not talking about forest animals here. There's something not right out here with me. I went to check the traps, and I only checked 3. Fuck the rest. Nothing at the first 2, but the third trap. When I approached the third trap, I saw someone. At least, that's what I thought at first. There was a naked girl standing with her back to me, holding a dead possum in her right hand. She was just standing there, beside the tripped snare, motionless and seemingly staring off into the distance. I knew the possum must have been dead because it just hung there, limp in her grasp. I called out to her as I neared her. She didn't move, speak, or do anything. I figured she had possibly been attacked or had gotten lost, and decided to raid my trap for food. I even went as far to think that maybe she had taken the equipment at camp, her footprints covered by the large amounts of animal traffic. I mean, she is the only human I've seen since I've been out here. At least that's what I thought at first. I called out to her twice. The first time I yielded no response, but the second time, unfortunately, did. I was only about 10 feet away when she seemed to hear me. Her head jerked upward, almost impossibly fast, and she slowly held out the limp animal to the side before dropping it to the ground. I hoped this black-haired girl was okay. Something about her at this point seemed very disturbing. I started to back up slowly, and with each subsequent step, she took one backwards as well. Getting really creeped out, I turned to run, and just before I turned my head, I saw something that made me question reality itself. Really, it couldn't have been there. I didn't hear anything following me as I was running back to camp. I'm pretty sure I didn't eat or drink anything that would cause hallucinations. But I think the best thing I can do for now is just sit tight, save some calories, and think about my next move. My bottle is gone as well, so collecting and purifying water will be a slightly larger task now. I'd look for food, but water is the most essential component at the moment. I'll need it to properly digest any food anyway. Okay, so I've been sitting here at camp with my back to the cave shelter and scanning the woods before me, ensuring nothing sneaks up behind me while giving me a great vantage point to see incoming unwanted visitors. Not only is it starting to get dark, but about 10 minutes ago, a baby started crying from somewhere off in the woods. A fucking human baby. There's no way a baby would be out here. It's gotta be some kind of trick. I've made a conscious effort to stay here. I'm a little freaked out, but I can't just ignore it. What if that baby and that naked girl are related somehow? What if someone out here really needs help? I think I'm going to take a quick look while there's enough daylight. I shouldn't have gone. They're after me now. It's after me. Camp is the safest place I can get to right now. It's dark and it's impractical to try and find someplace else. I'm just going to sit here with my back to the rocks. I don't think I'm going to have a fire tonight. Maybe it doesn't know where camp is, and I don't want to give it a light to follow. I went to check on the source of the crying, but as soon as I left camp, the sound stopped. Everything stopped. The forest went dead silent. I don't even think I was able to hear the sound of the running stream. The moon is full, so I was able to see enough to search the perimeter surrounding the campsite. I saw eyes at first. A few pairs of eyes, reflecting moonlight in the darkness. At first I stood still, hoping not to be noticed. As I did, either my eyes adjusted, or they were joined by more of whatever it was, because more and more sets of eyes were becoming visible, staring at me in the dark. Animals. I finally recognized them as animals. All differing species looking at me as if I was dinner. I took a few steps back, and they stood in place. I kept creeping backwards until the motionless creatures were out of sight. I've never seen a group of animals behave in such a way. I let out a sigh of relief and decided to make it back to camp for the night, topping up the crying sounds to that of an injured animal. Maybe that would explain the congregation of forest life. But it doesn't explain what happened to me when I finally turned around to make my trek. When I turned, I saw something monstrous that was apparently just standing behind me. It was what I saw yesterday. It had to be real. It smelled real. I was greeted with two very, very large yellow eyes, a long, canine's slack open mouth, and a snarly yelling sound that spouted saliva when it shrieked at me. It must have stood at least 6 foot tall, on two long, black, hairy legs. I fell back in a panicked scream as it reached for me with its long black arms that seemed to sport extra limb-like appendages from behind them. It was my fall that caused the thing to miss its attempt at grasping a hold of me. As I lay on the ground in terror, I identified the things on the backs of its arms as long, stiff spike-like protrusions that moved in accordance with the thing's forearm. I don't know how I managed to get away. I just got up and ran as fast as I could. It should have had me. Maybe it let me live. What the hell is going on in these fucking woods? Tomorrow I think I see something down by the creek.
This was the last written entry of the survivalist's account. The journal itself was found 2.7 miles from the man's insertion point. No trace of him or the equipment have ever been found. Each year, thousands of tourists visit the mountains of the Pacific Northwest, in and around this area. Subsequently, a few dozen of them disappear without a trace, never to be seen again.
Well, that just goes to show you the best laid plans can be laid to waste by a horrifying lemur-eyed coyote monster / naked girl, of course. But if your horror heart is still famished for more fear, step back into the unknown next weekend. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.